certification to teach classes.
We'd have to pay for it too. I mean, you're looking at a situation where we have to pay for their coursework, because what it says
To get a
is
master's.
they have to have a master's in field or 18 hours towards a master's in order to teach an effective class for science. So if we require teachers to take that coursework, then we have to find a way
To pay for their college classes.
So unless you're just, I guess, lucky enough to get a teacher with the education, we're kind of stuck at status quo, so to speak.
Or if they have their own self-initiative, you know, and they want to be a teacher, you know, for dual credit. You know, they do go-
Oftentimes teachers are taking
They
this
do.
coursework to advance themselves anyway.
Yes.
I know Bill gave us a lot of information there. Now, having gotten this, and we've mentioned here about these Wednesdays, this week is sort of the after, and then what are some other things that they're doing in the schools to address these issues, where the deficiencies may lie, and what we're working to do to try to improve those? I know they're doing things, but when do they do them?
Want to address that?
Well, I mean, it's, they use that time, that hour, and they've had opportunity now to look at the days. I mean, they know what it is in terms of weaknesses and strengths that they have.
And when did they look at that data?
That started, day one.
Like, okay, that's what I'm trying to say.
Right, so now they're at the point where they're actually developing lessons. I mean, they're collaborating, they're saying, here's a weakness, this is an area of weakness for fourth grade. So those fourth grade teachers are sitting down and looking at this, and they're developing lessons that will address those deficiencies.
But I mean, are
They
there
could-
particular days that are scheduled to do these things?
They could be during their planning time, in addition to those.
It looks different in
Wednesdays.
school.
You know, middle school teachers have a different, they have common planning as well as individual planning. They're able to look during their common planning time for these types of expanding what they have found through analyzing their data on the Wednesday mornings. Some schools stay after
Title I
school.
schools and 6 schools that have money.
They stay
Work
after
after
school.
So some of it's collaborative among teachers, others just individual teacher, like in their planning or what they do.
But the thing about the West test, when you start looking at this, you know, the students that you have is usually not the students you had that took the West test. In other words, you're teaching 5th grade. You had, now those kids moved to 6th grade, but you have some of that data, so they kind of look at the weaknesses of the whole 5th grade, not individual students, but they look that way. And also each, we have what we call our benchmark assessments. We give 3 of those a year, and that's based on what they're teaching at that time, as best we can match it up with our curriculum. And they take that, even though it's a summative assessment, they use it in a formative way. They'll do the benchmark and they'll look and say, okay, we see that in this class and the program that does it, it'll give you a readout. It'll say, okay, question number 24, 5% of your class missed it. Okay, well then, you know, they can pull those students and they'll say, well, it's just 5%, and that was something, I think, but if they pull it and it says 85% of your class missed this question, then they'll go back and say, okay, you know, the whole class missed this. It's not the students, it's something that wasn't taught right, or it's the way the question is asked, so the benchmarks are used the same way all year long to do that.
And one of the things that occurs in schools that have more than one grade level teacher, they have grade level collaboration, and then they also have the vertical, you know, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers may start looking at the data to see, you know, in 4th grade, 3rd grade teacher they know what 4th grade students need to know, and they start building and planning, vertically. When we look at Ranger, one of the things that Ranger did at one time was they sent their second grade teachers to West Hamlin because they only had one second grade teacher, So in order to be able to collaborate, they sent the teachers, there so that they could help with looking at data. You want to plan yourself,
But
but
also-
it's always better if you've got other people.
But it also helps us, because if we look at, we see a certain area that the whole county's weak, then we can do some staff development in that area also.
But it's a lot of a combination, Steve, depending on the school, if they do it with group, with common planning, several teachers, or individual, looking more into their own students, they can go back and look at their students they have this year. They can look at the data from those students last year and know what they need to build on. So there's a lot of that goes on.
Realize there's a lot of data. I'm just trying to get to the point, you have all this, but you have to have time to work with
Yes,
anything out.
what do you do with it? And we've learned that there are, the staff at different schools are at different levels of understanding the data, So we're dealing with that as well.
Okay. Mr. Wilkerson, anybody? Curry, have any questions? Do you have anything from Mr. Linville?
We may have lost her. She was on her cell phone.
I was gonna say, I think.
When he said something there before, I thought, I bet she's lost cell service.
And I want to go back, you remember when you all may have been asked the question, OEPA, regarding the data, this, will occur earlier, that's what they wanted, to occur earlier in the year.
For what presentation you mean?
Be given to you as a board. Now, we understand that the schools do this, but as a county, then we did do it earlier than last year. Last year was in January. This year's in
A little bit. All right, if there's nothing further on that. Next one. Let's see. Do you have any, we'll do transfer of property last. Do you have any other comments or concerns that you want to share with us?
Well, with the board work session, I have some dates. I think I had indicated to you all that I would like for you to look at your calendar. Rita, I think that we talked today, and what I have written down, I don't remember if I said another time.
Let me go get my calendar.
Okay, I said December the 7th, 18th, or 19th. Bertie, did you bring your calendar?
Could I ask, what time of, is this a during the day thing, or
Yes.
particular for my colleagues over here? It has to work for a living. Not good.
Only for 11 years and 3 more months.
Well, you-
Not that I'm counting.
It's all downhill down here.
Because we are going to be looking at, personnel and finances and how,
And that would be here.
okay, the morning of the 4th,
December the 4th.
And we have a board meeting that day, right?
yes.
It's kind of out for me. Me too.
Okay, well, me too, all right. So, 7th,
18th or 19th.
18th,
We
or
have a board
19th.
meeting on the 18th.
I think we're talking about a daytime, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
And then we have a 6 p.m.
I'm okay for 18.
we're talking about a daytime work session. 2 days.
He's only got so much energy.
Really?
You didn't know that, did you?
Well, I tell you what, look at us, we're just as peppy. We've been here since about 7:15 this morning.
That's one way of putting it.
You get soft when you're retired.
You got how many, 11 years?
3 months.
26 minutes.
We're baby here.
So which one of those are?
18th was good, or the 19th.
Are those better for
18th 's
you than the
good.
7th? Is the 18th or 19th better for you than the 7th?
I won't be in town the first week of December.
Okay, all right, so the 18th or 19th.
18th's good for me.
Just very-
Let's go with the 18th.
While we're on this, I have on my schedule a State Board of Education on December the 12th.
Yes.
I don't know what, it's on the schedule, I can't remember what it
State board
is.
meeting's gonna be here.
And it's going to be, beginning at 10:30 now instead of in the afternoon.
So I have
We just got
nine.
that information.
10:30?
Yes, they do want,
December the
They do?
12th, 30.
No,
they,
December.
they want all of you here.
No, I got Duval, is it?
No, it's
Or-
at LCHS.
Yeah.
You can
At the high school, oh
Lincoln
yeah.
County High School, yeah, that's what I got.
Could be very exciting.
You want to be there early, aren't we, Sean?
Oh yeah. Go camp overnight.
Just like
Black
getting ready for Black
Friday.
Friday. And I understand that they would probably want Mr. Priestley
Just say a few words.
to say a few words at
Yeah,
some point.
They had their chance in the summer. They didn't call on it, did they,
You
Sean?
was prepared, weren't you?
I was ready then.
Is the would it be fair to expect the OEPA to report back at that meeting?
Yes, they will be.
Okay.
They will be reporting back.
Has there been any indication to you guys that it's likely to be positive?
They are actually scheduled to come and do an exit with us on December the 3rd.
Okay.
And they will be giving us information at that time. But we will be having a light lunch and a dinner.
On the 12th.
Yes,
And a dinner?
yes.
Oh, this is overtime.
The dinner's at 4:30.
4:30.
Good grief.
All at the high school.
All at the high school.
Dang.
Students will be, the choir's gonna sing or something. Coach Stark's gonna do all the food, serve the food.
Media center or live?
Media, yes, media center.
Will they meet the next day too, do you know?
No,
No,
Just
that's why they moved the meeting back to 10:30 instead of
Or
noon.
just they're gonna do it all in one
Hoping
day?
to do it all in one day.
Unless they fire the superintendent.
Yeah, Sean.
I'm not
Not
letting
you.
them go into an executive session without me. Just go with them.
If they get up and go, go with them.
If they say, Trish, we did not want you in here, I'm just gonna go right out the door.
So Wednesday, December the 12th at 10:30 a.m. at the high school. Right. Now, back to the 18th, what time is it? It's a work session?
It's
Is
a
that
work
what we're doing?
session. I would like to start early. Is 9 o'clock too early for you all?
So we're gonna have a work session at 9 and then back at 6 for the board meeting?
Or do you
Probably
want to
just
start
plan on
at
staying here
noon?
all day, Larry.
All days is
I'm just
perfect.
kidding.
That's
Kidding you.
perfect.
See what you say.
We can clean a closet or
Oh,
something in the
sure.
afternoon. Spring clean.
I,
Just don't use too many garbage.
actually, it, this can be a long, if I can recall, the last one we had, I didn't get to finish my presentation.
That's what was concerning Larry.
I'm really worried about that.
I like to be very detailed. I want you all to know everything.
Well, I'm at the time now. What's the time?
9 o'clock.
Now, to me, early is 7 a.m., 5 a.m.
Well, early, in order to get, if there are any issues out there in the schools, we get those taken care of before we,
Okay, so you want 9 or 10?
You gotta feel
9
9 a.m.
on the 18th.
Do we have an estimated total meeting time at 9 to 12, 9 to
4.
9 to 4?
No. What time did we start the last, Steve, you were
I
here
don't
the last
remember.
time.
I thought we
I
did
was-
it like maybe 2 in the afternoon or something.
I think it was
the
probably
last
too
time.
early.
But you know what? What if we would start, say, at 4 and then let
I
it,
would not get finished
No, 2
because
hours?
I want to go through.
3, start at 3? And then maybe if we get finished, break for dinner?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Two, Trish, two.
I just,
And then that would give everybody time to go eat dinner.
I never felt like I got to complete my chart.
How about one? One PM?
What's wrong with that?
I'm good with
Then
that.
we could break, I mean, then we can finish, y'all could go
We
eat.
go home.
No, we just hang out here.
Jerry,
the rest of the
we're
day.
trying to get it down so she
Oh, okay.
will finish.
Thank you, Fran.
At a time that's agreeable to all of them. Okay, you all wanna start at 9 and go till like 2 and then break and then come back for the board meeting? Or do you wanna start
Well,
at 9
9
and go all the time?
I'd rather start at 9 and then be able to finish at whatever time that is, and then you all can go get ready for the board
Take a
meeting.
seat.
Yeah, we're 9 to whatever.
There you go, Fred, thank you.
Okay,
We
nine
go
to
to your
whatever.
house and hang out in the afternoon.
You
You're
can
close
sleep
by.
in, you can sleep in the bed.
Okay.
Now, what are we gonna do if we have snow?
We're still okay.
Well, the main thing, you listened to Tony last night, he told the superintendent to be up early so they could call school off. And you see how much we got, what was that?
This morning? Oh, no.
Well,
But what did I tell you, Jeff, before we left? It's-
I got up anyway.
There isn't gonna be any.
Well, if he says snow, you say there won't be any.
Okay, so we'll start at 9 o'clock on the 18th, okay? Now, would this be worded in such a way that it's a board meeting?
Yes.
And Larry's buying lunch. Did I hear that?
I heard that somewhere.
I think you're
Okay, let me clarify something. So, we're gonna have 2
Go
board
ahead and lock
meetings
the
on the
door,
same day?
guys. Just go ahead and lock the door. Are the kids all gone?
Will we have
Thank
2
you.
or will we have a recess and return? I don't know. How do we do that? Do we have 2 board meetings in one day, or do we have?
Yes.
Okay.
We've done that before, haven't
I think that's so fair.
we? You felt better now, Larry.
I feel better.
That's only
Not a
fair, you
lot.
all. Especially you having your
I feel
work on.
good because I'll have time to complete,
Okay.
and you have 2 board meetings.
Fair enough.
Let's see. I talk you about the board meeting, talk you about we've got a work session date. I think
Third,
that
we
was-
have that, you mentioned that.
Yes.
Goodness, that's exactly 1 week before Christmas. I bet you should get us all Christmas present on that day, won't you?
Another one of these notebooks. Big one. Is that on here?
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments or concerns? Okay. If not, let's look at our last item on the agenda then. It's the transfer of property at Arts. I think everybody got a copy of the proposal. I'll turn it over to you at this point, Drew.
When we met, Mr. Ricky and I met earlier, and then with the commission, and then we reported at, I think it was when we were at Hearts, in the board meeting there, and we talked about some of the items that might need to be included. And from the conversation at that point in time, Brenda has made a draft, yes, of a proposal, because the commission had requested that we submit a proposal, then they would come back with a response.
Thank you.
So, I guess this is up for discussion. If you all will look at it to see if there are any changes or rework of any type.
I know, as far as the utility costs at the school, Bertie, you wouldn't have a feel for what those are costing us now? the old?
I mean, I don't know, but I could find out, Steve. I could run a report and email it to you guys.
This figure that's the annual sum that we pay to the commission, how is that derived? Is this from the commission or just something?
What total?
The 20,000.
$20,000.
I think that was the discussion that night. It would be kind of what we, in line with what we pay the Lions Club.
What do we pay? That was another one of my questions, what we pay the Lions Club, 20,000?
Uh-huh.
Anybody else have any particular questions or concerns? I have a concern, and that deals with the old Harts Primary School. And that's, I'm not quite sure why that has to be a part of the agreement, and for me personally. You know, I was kind of surprised, I didn't realize that there were 23 acres that accompanied that school. And I guess what I think of is, you know, recently we've seen what the cost of, or the value of property is in Harts. I'm just wondering, you know, what is that value if it were to be sold on the open market by the board rather than somebody else? Because, you know, when we look in this, the way this is stated here, that the grantee, meaning which would be the county commission, is permitted to accept an offer for that property. In other words, they could sell that property after we give it to them as part of this. And then I looked at the last part, and this says that this agreement should be automatically renewed each year or terminated each year by either party. And not to question anybody's motives at all, but it just concerned me that if we were to give the property, and then the commission feels like, you know, for whatever reason, that they need to sell their property, do sell it, then acquire the benefits, then this agreement could be terminated, and it could happen in a year or so. I mean, I'm just once again speculating. And then the commission is benefited by whatever that value of that property is, and we've lost it. So,
Mr. Priestley, this may just be a rumor, but I have heard that at one time, there was a coal company that was interested in purchasing this property. Supposedly for construction of an office. I think we need to be real cautious in handling this myself.
it could be, I agree with Larry, I mean, it could be anybody. I mean, I don't know what the needs are in the community, that somebody might want to put in a 5 to 10 or something, I don't know what it might be, but it certainly could be something like it. But that's the part that concerns me, is that, you know, if we're giving the amount, and that's the reason I had asked Bertie about the utilities and all.
Now, I haven't seen this document that you guys are talking about, so
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, essentially what it's stating is that we'd enter into an agreement with the county commission, and they would, in this particular one, be given the Aidenville property.
You can give them permission to sell it.
Yeah, then they could do with whatever they wanted. But in addition to that, the board would pay $20,000 a year to, and it specifically states in here that we, the school system, would have first priority for the football field, the gymnasium, the locker rooms at Harts Intermediate, old Harts High School. So what we've talked about in the past is at the middle pre-K-8 school at Harts, that they'd be able to utilize that for football, basketball, and whatever else. But under this agreement, we would pay that fee, and then the commission would pay the utilities and the costs.
I don't know, you know, I prepared, which Jeff reminded me, I did prepare a utility cost, and I'm not so sure that it's costing us $20,000.
Well, they also share.
And I think when we arrived at that number to pay the Lions Club bill, that's for all those lights out there and that's how, you know, we just bumped that up not too long ago. Remember, we used to only pay them about $10,000, and then we bumped it up because of the utility cost. And I don't know if there's that much utility cost and usage at that field up there to justify a $20,000
So they're talking
payment.
about, it would include maintenance of the building, they'd be responsible for maintaining it, upkeep and improvement, the insurance on it, both property and liability insurance, although I kind of think that probably the liability insurance, the board's never going to evade that. That's always going to be part of ours with any students up here, I don't think. But that's what we were, that's, this particular amount, I didn't recall what the Lions Club got. But
You're kind of comparing apples with oranges too. The Lions Club owns the field and we're paying them a fee to use it. Here, we own the building, we're gonna give them the building and turn around
Well,
and
then
pay
they
them
will
to
own
use
it, then
and
we're
then
paying
pay
them.
them to use it.
And the only benefit we would get would be whatever at the art school, but whenever they utilized it.
I have a question. Where, 23 acres, what does that encompass?
The
Huh?
cemetery, I would.
Chris, there's a cemetery up there.
It's right behind the school.
Well, I've got the deeds in there.
Oh,
I read the deed,
you know,
come up
23
with
acres. I'm
So
just
that, 20 of
curious.
that may be cemetery.
I mean, when I saw
Or if
that-
it's across the road down in that area where it floods. I don't know. I don't know where to take in 23 acres.
But
I was
what
shocked.
bothers me is the public sees us paying $90,000 an acre, and then we give away 23 acres. I mean,
For somebody
And-
else to sell.
for somebody to sell, that's
I don't
crazy.
understand that.
Well, that's the part that bothers me, and once again, given that, and not questioning anybody's motives, but the circumstances could arise to where they would say, well, it's to our advantage that we need to sell this, or whatever, and then
I
we're
still say,
not a part of that, we get terminated money.
I guess maybe in our discussion at Hearts that night, that must have been what we
We may have
thought we
talked about
heard.
it.
Thought we
Yeah,
heard.
we put there a little bit. I never did see it 23 acres before.
Me, I didn't know how many acres.
But Bertie, sometime when you get a chance, could you email us, and I don't know what period you're gonna talk about, but
I was just thinking about that, I thought, well, I could just run up and run a report, but,
see, when they was in school,
Mhm.
this won't be the case here. We need,
I mean, actually, I can probably go up and generate a report for what we've paid year to date in those two separate buildings. I mean, like, I can go do that in just a couple of minutes if you guys will be here for a few minutes.
Yes, because I was thinking you did that for us once.
Well, I did when they were looking at purchasing, I had did that. But hang on just a minute, I can pull some numbers together.
And I guess maybe I also would have a question, I think we had talked about selling, if we sold that property, how we would go about in order to,
You ain't been home.
advertise that and would we set a minimum bid, those kinds of things.
You would have
One
to.
55,
And how we would
We'd have them.
avoid
selling
selling it to certain agencies or something, because I know Cabell just went through that, with selling some land. I don't know if you'll follow that in the newspaper, and being able to not take a bid that was given, but then turned around and sold it to, someone maybe with a lower bid due to the organization.
what, can't you put in there, you have the right to reject any and all bids?
I would think.
I mean, that's what I would think there was,
Yeah, and then that covers whether it be too low, the bid isn't high enough, or.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Some-
public organization you want to sell to, benefit the community.
And that,
Mr. Priest, while we're waiting on some of this information, there's something I'd like to see, and I'm basing this on some personal experience back many, many years ago. If this is granted, going to the old high school site, and the use of the athletic field and so forth, I'd like to see something put in there that would guarantee that the PK through 8 school would maintain the rights to any and all receipts from admission and concessions at school-sponsored events. Now, it's not that I don't trust anyone currently in office. That's not the point. You never know what's going to happen in the future. And having some experience, without going into details, back as a principal at Duval High School, I ran into a problem like that. And I think that the school should have all rights to receipts from admission and concessions.
I think that's only.
You think it'd be taken for granted, but apparently it isn't.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, you'd think that.
Yes, you would think that, but it doesn't always work that way.
They would, the school would, should receive any and all
At their events.
at their school
Yeah.
sanctioned
Now,
events.
Should the commission, have their own activities, that's a different story. I'm
That would
talking
be up
about
to them.
school-sponsored events.
School sponsored.
I'd like to see that in the,
Now, if the bond passes, there'll be new locker rooms built, correct?
No. Be remodeled, renovated
In the school.
in the building.
Renovated there, and then the football field, we get the bleachers. Just for your information, Sean, there is a statement in here where the school would have the
Perfectly
first
worded.
priority, they get a copy.
Mhm.
We have priority use of those areas. I didn't know you had one, the fourth paragraph.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask what was the arrangement for Ferrellsburg? Is that not, would that not be the model that this transaction would be based on, given that the county, as I understand it, operates Ferrellsburg?
Well, the
Presently?
primary difference probably be that we don't utilize it.
At all?
Where we want to utilize part of this.
Okay, that's what complicates this. I guess
Well,
that,
it's-
yeah,
That's just something we have to take into consideration. Farrellsburg is like we've done with other buildings where, 'cause we don't want to be in the building
Gotcha.
business. But there, we felt like there's definitely a need, and even more so now, that we've kind of waved away from the building a football field at the PK8 School of Arts, that we really need it. Plus, we feel like that the gymnasium, the boys and girls both playing, that, we can certainly utilize both of those. So that'd be the difference between those two.
Gotcha.
Sean.
It
Yeah,
snowed.
I'll do that in the first thing.
Didn't know, well, we haven't seen it in 3 days.
Where is 23?
I don't know, I thought we just had water.
Because, just
No.
right up that hill, there's the cemetery.
I don't, as I read this, and this is an old deed, and I'm sure that the staying the dogwoods and the leaning hickory tree and the
They're
cemetery,
there.
they're not there any longer. As I read this, it sounds to me like it takes in what would be the gas station that's across the road and the other houses beside of it. I'm not so sure that this is accurate.
We own a
We
gas
own the
station.
gas station?
According to this, it appears that we would take in that piece of property over there, if I'm reading it correctly.
Because it was there.
Because it does say that it runs along the riverbank.
Along the river.
You're, in other words, you're saying we own on that side of the road.
We own Route 10.
This deed is so old.
We could put
We
the
should
football
change
field over
the
there.
We'll just put up a toll
toll.
bridge, toll gate up for that, we own the road.
Yeah,
I'm sure if you research that, you're gonna find that there's been deeds
I
cut
think
off
so,
to
Since
that.
then.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only one I have on file.
We may not even own Nathan Field, boy.
Don't look too big, too deep.
Don't dig too deep, Kurt,
And let me
They
share
own
with you,
gas
when
station.
Trish and I met with the county commissioners, part of the rationale for wanting the Yatenville property to be able to sell that was to offset the cost associated with, like replacing,
sewer.
it was the sewer system that needs replaced. And it's gonna be quite expensive to do, as well as the roof on that building.
And what building we talking about now?
The old part stuff.
Yeah,
The old
the Harts
building.
Intermediates.
Did someone, or did I just dream this, say that sewer plant for that school would be up to around $250,000
Yeah,
To-
$250,000.
to,
Well, now, not necessarily now, because you don't have students in it. So it doesn't take a big sewer plant.
Well, that's true.
well, that's true, but I believe that's what it's telling me.
I think when Dana spoke to us here a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned that.
Okay.
I don't know if he gave that figure or not, but he was talking about the need of
See,
the
you cut the usage tremendously when you don't have students in there.
So has the commission expressed an interest in selling? Have they already expressed the suggestion to you guys that they would sell the Aidenville? Is that what I heard Jeff say?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
And when, we had a couple of inquiries, did we not, Brenda, about, what were we going, if we wanted to sell it? Jeff, I think maybe one person, once they realized that there was asbestos
They changed their minds once they.
in the building and what they wanted to do with it and what they would have to do, then they changed their mind.
Well, it depended on what they were doing. If it was in, you know, if it were encapsulated in it was an office building, they may not have any problem.
True.
Where if they wanted to come in and tear the building down and build something else.
The nursing home.
One was a nursing home.
We'd have to mention this asbestos thing in any selling procedure.
Absolutely,
Right.
yes, yes. that would
That's
have to
just a
be
given in a whole
conveyed.
building.
And what was it that Dana talked about the amount of asbestos in that particular building versus some of the others. I thought that one night.
As long as you're not disturbing it, I mean, that's what I mean. Any of our older buildings will have asbestos in it. That's just a given.
Right,
That's what I mean, depends on what the person is doing.
that one is to
I'm
do.
sure Duval's got, and
Oh, yeah, every,
That's what happened at the junior high. As long as we were there and using it, it was okay. We weren't there.
Do we have a county surveyor?
You know,
Property taxes and all that.
Not anymore?
And this almost looks,
That's out there.
that would be,
this is McDade.
have to research, do the research.
Where's it?
Send them out and talk, find out if
Oh, good. Is this other duties as assigned? I have to go learn to be a surveyor or a.
You and Jeff, you take it.
I don't
You carry the
know.
compass, whatever they do.
one of you's gotta have the machete cut your.
That was the advantage of
We can
growing
have
up
the
with four
property
brothers.
surveyed,
I
we
learned.
can pay for it.
That's expensive.
You know, try to find another deed first, I think.
You want to see it? You want to see the deed?
No, I'm.
But you know, when I saw that.
But I think,
They're very
Well,
hard
down
to
maybe.
recall. You know, they back in the old days, they.
Maybe we need to have Dana to sort of give us an update what a new sewer plant
I
is
can't
called.
remember.
With
Oddly
taking
enough, I
into
was looking at it a few
consideration
weeks
we're
ago,
not
and I
having.
can't even hear.
And because
You have a mic?
$40,000 a year is a lot of money.
Well, it's not a very accurate map.
Maybe
It
we
doesn't
could
look
do that,
like
Trish, we
today.
could get the sewer plant figures and also,
What's the date?
It gives a,
Bertie may get those as far as what costs we're paying now.
I don't know.
for the utility.
the deed is
Yes,
dated
that's it.
In order to see how
1955.
much it's gonna
I
cost
don't
us a
see
year
it
if we
anymore.
keep the
Right.
building.
Exactly.
See, this only
If we
shows.
weren't to do anything.
For the
75 acres of the school.
primary school?
Yeah, the intermediate school.
Oh, for the intermediate, you want to know the
Right.
cost of the
Yeah.
utilities for
Yeah, like
that?
what-
If we kept
The old Hart High
primary.
School,
Right.
the old Hart High School. We don't wanna keep April, in my opinion.
No. We were just thinking, if we're gonna pay $20,000 a year, that's less than $2,000 a month, but, our remembering that we're only gonna use that for certain things, we're not gonna use most of the building. Are we gonna, the cost of those utilities gonna be greater than that we'd be giving, or could we just fund it
I
ourselves?
think she's going in there to
Not
look at
use it.
utility.
Maybe not, but I think we need to know that information.
Did you get that? I'm trying, right. If they want Dana to give us an update on like the new sewer plant figures, and take into consideration that there are not, the number of students, or would not be the number of, students there, in the cost of utilities, for that intermediate school, if, we were to keep the building.
Keep the whole building, the Harts?
Is that correct?
Yeah, well, we're just trying to see the comparison of the two. And I think the making areas, if there aren't that many students, then the
Yeah.
sewage system, or sewage plant really doesn't have to be the capacity it was obviously used for school.
Hey Jeff, this 2.75 acres, what's the other?
See, that's what I'm saying, as I read this old deed, it appears to me that property continues to go right on across Route 10,
Uh-huh.
down to the mouth of this creek. And then, I'm not sure how many feet are in a pole, but I'm estimating at least 600 feet back down the river before it turns and goes, back across the highway. But, we know there's a double wide, there's someone lives right in here.
Yeah.
This piece of property.
And if it goes back across, there's a church. If you go back across,
There's a church over there beside the double wide, there's between
church and a bar
If
and
there's
a
23
filling
acres in
station.
there, I don't know.
And that doesn't
Gas
revert back to
station,
the
I know.
original.
Like conglomerate.
I checked that a long time
Where did
ago.
this 23 acres come from in the,
Off this
in the
deed right
trans-
here.
it-
This deed that is old, it says more or less
Nice rest.
34.6 acres, more or less.
See, there's the same.
Being the same property deed to the female grantor, blah, 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 1935. However, accepting 1.55 acres, more or less, conveyed by the first parties to Thelma Pack in June 1940. Also, a tract of 10 acres, more or less, conveyed by the first parties to William Moore in 1946. Also, a small cemetery located on the said premises, being 122 feet on one side and so forth. I just subtracted those numbers,
you wound up
came up with approximately